Worm's Eye View, Episode 3. The FSD Supervised and iTunes overlap. This is a thought series by MistaHella. So, with the Worm's Eye View, it is a series where we look at things from the bottom up and not from the top down. Okay, so what does FSD Supervised and iTunes have to do with each other? Let's discuss that. So this is the discussion part of the essay. Well, I will post the full essay on X and Substack. I'm trying to get the Substack together on that. I had another Substack and I'm trying to combine them. It's a weird situation when it comes to Substack. But I am trying. Okay. And so what we're going to do now is start our discussion. Okay, so from the top down view of robotaxis is really awesome, right? In that CEOs, corporations, and shareholders are all falling over themselves to make this thing happen. Because ride sharing can be lucrative. Before ride sharing, there were taxis, and it was okay, but they found a way, Uber found a way to create a platform where people can use their own cars to do a ride-sharing service, not ride-sharing, but a ride-hailing service, where you don't have to call, because it used to be that you have to call a taxi company and they order your ride and it comes out, and they pretty much had a lock on prices and things. How, they had to be certified, they had to have badges and stuff. But Uber came along and crushed all that with their service, with their platform, because they really, they provide cars, but mostly it's about using your own car. So they got rid of the overhead of owning a fleet of cars. And it was just software, really, an app. But now you have these big companies that found a new way to delete the driver itself. So we're going to delete this guy and make more money, because you can charge, less, and people will take, because everybody loves a sale. So, even though humans are smart, we can be dumb, because it's like the grocery store. We used self-serve checkouts, which is weird. Why would you use that? Because it's fast and you can get out quicker, and you do the work yourself, but in the process of doing that, you're eliminating a job and saving the supermarket money, because they don't charge you less for you doing it yourself. Okay. So the top-down view is very lucrative. Nothing but profits right here. Nothing but profits. Because all you have to care about is the car. The car drives itself. But from the worm's eye view, from the position of the driver, it's not so lucrative, because your position has been deleted and now you have to move on to, because nobody do ride hailing really as their only gig. They have another gig that they're doing. They might have a day job or a side hustle or something of this nature that they're doing to make ends meet. So now they got to find another gig job in order to, before they downsize that, downsize you from that kind of thing. I used to be a Lyft driver, and 5 stars. I was an awesome Lyft driver, I would say. So I definitely know this person's position because, even though you want it to be a side hustle, it becomes a full thing because driving is very tiring. And when you come back, you have to go to bed. Well, I did anyway, because you have to go to bed so you can get up and drive some more. It is a bad. It is not as lucrative as you might think. I thought I was going to get into it. I'm just going to do a few drives and stuff, make a little money. But no, this thing becomes a full thing. All right, so we have the usual suspects in this area. We have, you have Waymo, which is Google, and you have Tesla, the Cybercab, which is Tesla, and you have Zoox, which is Amazon. So you have user characters, side characters that's going to come into this whole new area. So, which you kind of say is this Uber's comeuppings, because Uber and Lyft's comeuppings because they displace taxi drivers. Now they about to be displaced by robocars. It didn't last long, did it? Okay. So these are the usual suspects, right? You have which, everybody's trying to master this. Now the problem is that you can get 99% of the way there, but it's that 1% of AI training, because driving is chaos incarnate. Each country, each state, each city has its own little uniqueness, and it's not uniform everywhere. And this is where they get in trouble. AI is pretty good with known variables, but when it comes to chaos that humans are dealing with, what we do, it's a little difficult to nail it down. It won't be perfect. It will never be perfect, in my opinion, until you have more robo cars on the road, where you have cars that drive themselves on the road. Then it becomes more stable. But until then, it's going to be chaos, because you have trucks, you have everything on the road. People, kids, dogs, cats, birds, everything on the road in reality. And usually the thing that they bring up is, I heard Elon talk, which made a lot of sense, where he was talking about using as an example the elevator. In the beginning, elevators needed a human operator. After a while, the human operator was replaced by an automated system, where you can go floors. And then, but I think what he failed to mention, didn't add on, or maybe didn't think of it, was that this gave rise to the bellhop, the doorman, right? This is the elevator lesson, is that even though the elevator is automated, you still need someone, which I call the last foot of any transportation system, any kind of dealing with humans. You still need that last foot. Okay, this is where we're gonna come back to that. This is where um, Spotify and iTunes come into place. Now let's talk about this. iTunes is where we are right now with FSD supervised version. I think FSD supervised, when you watch the videos online, sometimes you see people using it to do ride hailing jobs, where they're using it to show it off that the car's driving itself, things like that. I think that FSD supervised is the perfect marriage of what I call it the missing middle should be. Because when iTunes came out, it just took everything by storm, because artists can control the delivery system. Before, you had to, if you wanted to reach a large audience, you had to get on a label, because they would put you in the stores, they would put you on radio stations and all this kind of stuff. Pay to play came into play, and the labels had that distribution thing on lock. But when iTunes came around, it disrupted that in such a huge way. That the labels had to create Spotify. They had to give away everything, all the music, for free, in order to take down iTunes. So they was like, we're just going to give everybody all music everywhere forever. All you have to do is get a subscription. It was smart. And humans as we are, or I should unsophisticated as we are, is that we didn't see the bait and switch. Where artists should have said, that we only going to have our stuff on iTunes, because iTunes was allowing artists to distribute themselves and live off of their work. They was going directly to the fans, directly to the consumer, and cutting the middleman out, the labels out, because you was going straight to iTunes. People creating, they buy your stuff on iTunes, download it to their iPod, and not only that, but you had all kind of stuff. You had podcasts, you had audiobooks. People was doing everything, going directly to the listener. And it just became this huge thing. It rocked everything. And then you had the iPod, which you could download all your music. Then they had, you can buy, larger storage and stuff, and you can digitize all your records, and MP3 players were everywhere. Just awesome. It was an awesome time. And for a brief period, we lived in a very, I would like to call it a good future. This is what a good future looks like. The iTunes era. To go down, we should have kept going down that path, creating new players and and really innovating in this area. But they the labels, you always have somebody on the other side of the chessboard. So the labels, they came with their counter offer, which was Spotify. And it just, now artists are making like 0.0001 cent per song. Because they was making 99 cents per song, and people downloading, they was making money, and yeah, It's yeah, it was, and they just jumped on the new platform, which was not in their best interest at all in the artist. So you had independent art, oh, independent. Everybody was blowing up at this point in time. MySpace was, was popping. So you had all kinds of stuff. So okay, but it was a good era. Now this is what's happening with robotaxis, where we have this golden era that can happen once Tesla perfects FSD supervised to a point where it can drive itself, where it'll just be FSD without the supervised. Right? Now, I think that FSD supervised should evolve to FSD co-op drive. We want the marriage of both worlds. We want the marriage of both worlds. We want that three shouldn't be there. We want human plus robot teamwork. Why is that? Why do we want that? Because of the last foot problem. The last foot problem is the issue. Let's talk about it. Point A to B, perfect. Robotaxis can do that every time. A to B, you have to go from Sacramento to San Francisco, boom. Big macro solve problem. Get on the freeway, do lane changes, get off the freeway, get close to the location that you're going to, navigate the side streets and all that kind of stuff. But when it gets to the last foot, that's where the problem is at. So you have, as a Lyft driver, as a former Lyft driver, you have gated communities, poor visibilities, map does not go with reality, or, God forbid, the passenger you're picking up has an old phone and the GPS is not as accurate as modern phones are. So for some reason, the GPS is showing them in the back of the house when they're in the front, or in the front when they're on the side street somewhere. Or let's say the entrance is in the alley instead of on the front. So you have the last foot problem, where that's where humans excel, is figuring out, because it was built for humans. So you have to figure it out as a human figuring it out, because FSD knows about A to B. It don't know about all this other variables X, Y, Z. It don't know about that stuff, because humans are messy. So you have a situation where you're in front of a CVS pharmacy and you're trying to locate this person, and you don't know where they at. Are they in the parking lot? Are they on the front or somewhere like that? This is where humans excel. So it should be co-op drive, FSD co-op drive, because we're working together, humans and robots, teamwork, baby. Now, this is where robotaxis shine. Known pickup and known drop off. I think that Tesla is messing up in one area. I'm a fan of Tesla, but I think they're messing up in one area, and that is FSD, as I see it, as I observe the situation that's online and everything's nature, and them trying to slowly ramp up their cybercabs and stuff, and robotaxis, is that what I see is that robotaxis shine when there's a known pickup location and a known drop-off location. Anytime you have to you know, where things get murky, that's a problem. So what did that mean? So let's say that uh, you get into a robotaxi, and instead of, you know, using your app to put in an address or something of that nature, you know, especially the ones that don't have a steering wheel and pedals, it has designated locations like they did with the Robot event, right? They had designated locations where you can pick up and drop off. And I think this is what should happen. You could say, okay, you have a selection on the screen of where you can go with the robotaxi. Do you want to go to the mall? Do you want to go to the fairgrounds, parking lot, food court, that kind of thing? I think this is the way right now, in the immediate moment, that we're in. This is until, you know, AI really gets sophisticated. But I think this would be the best use case for the human-free, the robotaxis, the pure robotaxis that don't have any kind of steering wheel or pedals and things like that. But when you start getting into the murky area, that's when you need FSD co-op drive. You know, it's not complicated. You have a human in the car when you're dealing with addresses. You know, somebody entering the address that you're picking up from, then that's when the co-op driver is. I know that they don't want to hear this, because, you know, they already calculating all the money that they're gonna you know, rake in, because they're getting rid of the driver, which is okay. I think it's going to come regardless, because you're going to have more robotaxis on the road, and it becomes more safe and more predictable. But anytime you have humans in the loop, it is chaos incarnate. Anytime you have a human, it's chaos. So the best way to deal with humans is to have a human in the loop somewhere. You know, they're keeping an eye on everything around. They can make decisions as a human would, and you know, and maybe guide the robot AI into a better place. You know, locating the pickup and things like that. And I mean, just think about it. You have passengers that are going to the airport. You need to put luggage in. You need to, you know, do all kind of stuff. Or you're picking up somebody from a hospital. They're on crutches. You know, you have to put the crutches in and things like that nature. You know, they need help. You know, wheelchair. I mean, just the whole nine. You know, it's really. Then, I don't know how good the cameras are. You're going to have times where the car needs to be cleaned. Just so many other things that can be happening. Now, what I mean by golden era for co-op driving is that, yes, you can get rid of 50% of drives with pure robo-taxis, because you're going point to point. You know, clear drop-off, clear pickup locations. You know, you have, they call them stops, right? Bus stops. You can have, you can have robotaxi stops. You go to a stop, you hit a button, you scan the QR code on your phone, and then it summons your car, because it's going to say, where are you at? You just, you hold the QR code to the stop, and it picks it up, and then the car just comes to you. I think this is where it's going to sell, and you're going to a clear location. And maybe those rides can be cheaper because you're going to a robotaxi stop. But FSD co-op is going to have to cost a little bit more. But you're having an attendant, just like with it's a bellhop. They're gonna help you with your stuff. and maybe get compensation. Maybe people want compensation or something nature. They want somebody to have a little bit of accountability. So now, when we talk about the public, like transportation, cities, and states and things of nature, they right now they subsidize public transportation, and you know most likely it's always in the red because you don't, even though you have statistics and trying to figure out when to put more cars out, when to put more buses and stuff like that out, and more, because even the light rails they have cars that they add on when they know that everybody's getting off of work and stuff of that nature. But just think about it: if the city invests in a fleet of robotaxis and incorporate the stop, methodology, then you no longer have routes anymore. You can just go directly to the passenger, pick them up, take them to the stop, and then the car goes somewhere and park and wait for the next summon. I think this can be the future of public transportation, and help cities out. If they buy a fleet of robotaxis, and I know they're going to make bigger ones, right? For bigger, you can say, oh, we're going to, this is going to be a shared robotaxi, and that could be even cheaper than the individual one. People might want to pay extra for riding an individual car rather than sharing a taxi, sharing a bigger taxi, robotaxi. So public transportation can be totally revamped and reimagined. Now we're going to start talking about the Tesla truck, which is awesome. Which they're going to try to do FSD on that too. But I think that the Tesla Semi should also, I think it should stay a co-op driving thing. I know a lot of people out there, especially investors and stuff, and and people that are really into robo-taxis would think this is crazy because they salivating over all the money that they can make by getting rid of the driver. I think they are missing the point, right? Is that even though the truck can do the driving, the cargo still needs a guardian. You need somebody there that is watching out for human bad actors, right? If the truck gets into an accident, you have somebody on site in the truck that can handle all the paperwork and stuff, that kind of thing. And then when the truck is charging it, they are security for the truck, and they have their eyes on the truck, because if people know that these things are autonomous and unmanned, that it's going to be easy pickings. People are like, oh, that's unmanned, I could just go in there and just steal some stuff, that kind of thing. So, and then the last foot problem also exists in the trucking thing too as well. They'd be like, oh, well, yeah, when they get there, that's the people will handle all that when the truck gets there, which is cool, which I think is okay. It's just that there's nothing like a human handshake, moment where, you are confirming that the package was dropped off and everything's nature, and making sure that everything is A-okay. Because, maybe it was packed wrong or something nature, and they need someone to talk to and facilitate that, being a middleman between the corporation and the delivery spot, so the company and the delivery spot. So you need that. And So I think we're going to. So the bottom line is that um, the bottom line is that just we are FSD supervised can evolve into FSD co-op drive for when it comes to ride hailing. And I think also too, I think it's a bad idea for insurance companies to penalize people for driving their own car. That's not cool. So I don't think that's cool. I think it should they should allow it to naturally happen, to naturally evolve into what FSD will become, and not you don't have to push it. I don't think it's something that you have to push because people are going to want this service. People don't want to drive, and then there's some people that do want to drive, but I think a majority of people don't want to deal with the headache of rush hour and driving long distances. I think FSD is such an awesome idea, just like iTunes were. It's the iTunes of driving, right? You can enter your location and it takes you there, and you can enter your destination and it can just take you there, and then you do that last foot thing where it's like, oh, okay, so maybe we can't park here, we need to park somewhere else, or I need to go and pick up grandma from here, and then she's over there, she's in the wrong place, that kind of thing. I think it's helpful to have the human in the loop for a while. I think before AI gets really sophisticated, I think that's coming too as well. But I don't think that we should Spotify FSD at this moment. I think we should allow people to be a part of the future, be part, especially ride-hailing drivers can be part of that future, and allow them to be that transition. Allow AI to learn from them, as they drive and they pick up and things of nature, that last foot, because that's where the problem is. Because I think 99% is okay, but it's that 1% that is not okay. I think they can learn from that, and then when you do the drives with no steering wheel, no pedals, it should be point to point. I think that's where it will excel. It's point to point, because you have a known drop off and a known pickup. Just like elevators. So that's where elevators excel. Just imagine if the elevator had to get out of the tube that it's in and then try to find the room. That'd be nuts. Okay, so that is Worm's Eye View number 3. And if you believe that we should do FSD co-op drive as an evolution of FSD supervised, leave a message, and we can discuss it in the chat, in the comment section, and also too, I'm gonna post this as an essay, a small essay on X, and I'm gonna try to put it on. It's gonna be on X, and I'm gonna try to do Substack. I'm still trying to figure out Substack. And that's all I have to say. So, MistaHella out. Peace. Thank you for listening to all my 2 listeners. Peace.